friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. So today is week 4 of the Skulliver Sew Along. Skulliver Sew Along is this right here. This is what a Skulliver is. It is a paper-pieced kit that we are sewing week by week until it is finished here on Tiffany's Quilting Life. So I have my book here. I have all of my information inside of my book. Everything's in here, all the pieces that I've made, all my templates, all the things I need, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, if you're not quite sure what Skulliver is or where it comes from, check out Legit Kits right up here. I have supplied you a link that'll take you to their website and you can browse through all of their patterns. They have way more than just this, but this video series I'm doing is for Skulliver. So this is for the large Skulliver. They do have a smaller version. The large one is 60 by 80. So we're making quite a large quilt here. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and get started on what we need for week 4 of the Skulliver Sew Along. So I'll meet you at the cutting table. All right, for week 4, we need our book. We are going to open our book, and as you can see in mine, I found my clear pages last week, and I decided to put all my parts needed for these sections right here inside these clear pages, so that way everything can stay together. So I put lots of clear pages in here, so that way every section will have its pages. So we're going to go ahead and skip to the end of my book, and we're going to pull out page 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So pages 19 through 24 is what we're going to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and move the book out of the way because I got my pages out and it looks like my other pages are trying to come out all on their own as well. Stay, I say, stay. Well, I guess I'll just stack it up right there. Okay, it's all where it needs to be. Oh, I should keep the book out though so that I can show you. All right, here we go. So for pages 19 through 24, I have already gone ahead and pulled out my colors. That way it makes this video go so much faster because, you know, I'm already at week 4 and I realize these videos are kind of long. So I'm trying to shrink it down a little by skipping a step. So all of my colors needed are already right here, as you can see, laid out on the table. And those are my pieces. And to get those colors, we have a filing system. Let me show you. So over here in my mess, I have my fat 8ths, my fat 16ths, my black, my fat quarters, and my little scrap pieces. That is my filing system. I look for the number in the top corner, and then I pull that piece out. Once they are pulled out, I have been stacking them. As you can see, it helps having all of those pieces with the little stickers to the right-hand side because it helps find the piece easier. So as you can tell, I definitely have them all nice and organized. So to find those codes or the color numbers on the stickers, I'm going by the fabric list code. Now you can use the color codes right here, which is a bigger chunk of the color, but I'm finding that the fabric list code is actually easier. So say I needed QI, you would go in alphabetical order to Q and I, which is lemon ice, and it was under my 3/4 yard pieces. So that was one of the bigger pieces. So QI and HG, which is over here too, HG, those were both 3/8 of a yard pieces. Those were the only two 3/8 yard pieces, so I know I'm going to be using them quite often. All right, so you can see I went by color code. So CN, you would find C and then N, and then you'd find that that was under the fat 16ths, and so on and so forth until you have all of your colors per the pages that we are doing. Again, pages 19 through 24 for week 4. And all of my stuff is now pulled out. You can see I'm working with yellow and green this week. So I'm going to go ahead and close my book and we're going to get started. If you don't remember, I did borrow a light box from a friend here locally. She was kind enough to contact me and say, "Hey, Tiffany, I have a light box. Would you like to use it? Because I know you were talking about it." And I was like, "Heck yeah." So here is the light box, and we're going to go ahead and turn it on. I'm going to turn it on the brightest setting. If you have a light box that has an A4 cutting mat on it, that would make this so much easier. And what do I mean by that? Because they have bigger ones that are light boxes that have a cutting mat, a see-through clear cutting mat on top of them. And that will allow you to lay your piece on here and cut alongside all your pieces with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all 4 sides, and you will have exact size pieces. So you would put this paper under the cutting mat part and then go with that. But I am using scissors. So what I'm going to do is it kind of sticks to this, as you can see. My page, well, if the fan wasn't on, you can see it sticks to it nicely, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and grab the colors that I need from right here on my desk, and I'm going to cut them out with scissors. So my first piece on here is MZ, which is way up there, so let me grab that. Oops, I don't keep meaning to hit this camera, but I'm in an awkward angle here. All right, MZ. So I'm going to go ahead and find the best angle to cut MZ, and it looks to be right here. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not cutting the paper. I'm only cutting the fabric. I'm just going to slide my scissors in. And I have my MZ piece cut. So I'm going to go ahead and just move that out of the way. Just remember that I cut it, whatever. I think I just cut this side actually. This way, some way, whatever way. That's the way I cut it, right there. I don't know. Anyway, next is BR, which again is way up there at the top. So give me 2 seconds. All right, here's my BR. I'm going to go ahead and find the best place for it. And it's going to be right here in this little point that I have kindly cut off of here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So there's my BR. Piece is now to size. I'm just going to stack them down here out of the way. I don't think you can see that on the camera. Next is BC. I'm just going to reach in there and grab that out. BC, again, is another piece that I can fit right here off of this. Just like that. So there's BC. Just going to move that out of the way. And I'll straighten all these back out. UN. There's my UN piece. Let's see which way I can fit this on here and still have a 1/4 inch seam on all sides. Just like that. So I have a 1/4 inch. You can see through my fabric on that piece. I have plenty of space. And then LQ right here. Come on. Right there. LQ. Have not cut into before. So this one is going to lay right here. I'm going to turn the light box. Lay my piece on here. LQ is right here. So I'm making sure it's covering it on all 4 sides. And I'm going to cut it up to here. And then cut this crooked angle and call it a day. So there is all the pieces I need for that piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside and move on. Ooh, right there. Move on to the next. So all these right here, so B8A, I'm just going to show you right now. If you wanted to cut out all of your pieces in advance, so say you went through your book and you found your pages and you saw what they look like, and you come over here to these charts. These cutting guides are there for a reason, but you can see that a lot of them, and I said this in video 1, they have a lot of extra space, so they do give you ample amount of cutting space. But say right now we needed this carnation, which is AR. You can see it has 4 cuts on it, but it also tells you which pages use it. So right here is 1, which is one of these pieces right here. 1 comes from page E2D. So you can actually cut page E2D out and have that piece already ready. The reason why I didn't go through and say, oh, hey, I'm going to cut AU and I'm going to cut this first piece out and all these pieces to it and then like tack them to that page. The only reason why is I would have had to mark each and every single individual piece and put them with each and every individual page. And that would have just been way too much than sewing a couple blocks every time we sew. So since I decided to do 6 blocks at a time, I disregarded the fact that there is a chart, but it's there for a reason. You can see ample amounts of room. So if I do cut too big somewhere or didn't cut the right way, I still have plenty of space to work with. And it tells you which pages use that color. So, I mean, it is a good chart, but I am just foregoing it because it makes it easier for my brain. But if I do need to look and say, oh, how am I going to make this work because I cut this, this, and that, just know you have plenty of space to cut it. So like this 1/16 of a yard on cantaloupe has 2 big pieces. Well, I already know to look for the biggest area. That's my first thing, is to find the biggest area, and then I should have a little piece left over. That little piece should fit. So I should be able to get my pieces because of the way I'm cutting them. And with the light, it's making it a lot easier. So just know there is a cutting guide for a reason, but I did not want to do it where you cut out everything and then have to mark it and know what goes where and how and so on and so forth. I'm just foregoing the diagrams. So I hope that made some kind of sense. I know I should have added that in video 1, but that's okay. I caught you up now on why I'm doing things the way that I'm doing them. All right, so we're going to just close the book for now, moving it out of the way. I'm going to restack all these so that I can see the colors. That way it helps me match my pages. So that's what you're not seeing on camera, is my stacks are helping me see these colors on the pages because I'm stacking them neatly. So that way I can look and make sure that AV is a certain color or QI is this lemon ice color. I'm making sure that I can see what all the colors are from my sewing machine. And I'm just leaving them laid next to me until I am completely done using them. So I'm going to clean this up real quick. All right, so I have them all cleaned up, and as you can see, I can see all these colors from the sewing machine. That will help me make sure that I'm grabbing the correct color for the correct code. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to leave you guys kind of far away so that you can see. I do want to re-grab my light board for now. All right, I have the light board. I do not have ample space for working on this. Well, I don't have ample space for filming it because I only have like 2 feet of space to work with behind me, and the tripod takes up more than that. So, all right, we're gonna grab my add a quarter ruler. I've just been using my long one. My short one's probably for the smaller ones. I'm also not using my Martelli rotary cutter because I've noticed that the angle I'm trying to cut right here next to me is kind of tight. So I'm just going with what's next to me. All right, I need my little cardboard piece. I need my roller, and I'm going to turn my light on and leave it on right here in case I need it. We're going to start with page 24 because that's the last one we cut all the pieces for. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the excess paper off because that's not needed. And I'm going to go ahead and grab AV, which is the biggest piece right here, also piece number 1. And I am going to make sure that this, I can see my fabric through here, that I'm covering the selvage that's right here, because remember I did cut some of these, making sure that, you know, I'm using all the fabric, but I do have the selvage out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead, I should have done this first, I'm going to fold my line real quick, same as I did in week 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it the rest of the way down. Oh, it was on. Didn't look like my machine was on. All right, I'm going to fold down here between 2 and 3. There we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold back on that line, and I'm going to create myself a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance to work with. So I'm going to throw an extra pin in here because this moving around. Ooh, it's raining. All right, so that I'm going to go ahead and cut away with my add a 1/4 ruler. I'm going to lay it on that folded line. And there it is, the size it needs to be. And then this guy right here, we can see goes like this already. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold the side that I need, place it over like this, and line those 2 sides up, just like this. Everything's nice and flat. I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the machine and sew between number 1 and 2. I'm also going to make sure that there's not much in my way. And even with the pins, it kind of shifted, but I know that that piece is going to cover where I needed it to cover, and it does. I've got plenty of space. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this back and cut the other green to the same size seam allowance. Like this, and then I'm going to remove the pins, and we're going to roll it back, or press it with my roller. You can do that at the iron if you want as well, but I don't have the space right here to get up and down for an ironing board. All right, next I'm going to fold back between 2 and 3. I'm just going to pull that seam allowance amount down there away. I'm going to lay it right here, line my thing up. As you can see, I've been putting all my scraps in that box right there. This piece is going to cover right here. I want to make sure it's in the right spot, so I'm going to go ahead, holding the side I know that I'm sewing on, line it up. I'm going to turn it upside down and sew on the 2 and 3 line. And then I'm going to make sure that it covered it properly because it does like to shift on me. I've had that quite a few blocks now. It's the size I want. I'm going to go ahead and cut away that seam allowance, folding the paper back. I'm cutting with the paper side facing up and then pressing. So you can see this is getting a lot easier as we go along. There'll probably be a few ones that are going to be a little bit challenging still, but as a beginner, I feel that this is very, very beginner friendly. So this piece, B8A, is already ready to set aside and is done. Ready to be done more too. So we're going to pull up the next piece, big chunks here, and we're going to get started on that. But I need to step away for a second. Okay, where were we? Let's go to page B7, which is page 23. We're going to look at all these pieces. One is AV, so AV is avocado. So that's this big chunk that we cut. Not sure. Oh, there, that's the way I cut it. So we're going to make sure on the light board and then pin it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and be nice if I do this first. I always forget this part, the folding of the paper, because, well, I just do forget it. I don't know how, I just forget it. All right, so let's fold all these real quick. Get them all folded. I had to go outside and enjoy some of the rain because it hardly rains here where I live in Arizona, and it's storming out there. So I'm enjoying the storm at the same time as filming. I can hear it out my window though. But it started raining too much on the back patio, so I had to come back in. And I figured, well, at least I got to go outside for a moment. All right, my page is ready. I'm going to lay this on here. I'm going to make sure by lining this paper up, I can see underneath and see my fabric the whole entire way. I'm going to go ahead and throw 2 pins in it because the fabric wants to move every time I just do 1 pin. Remember, we put our fabric on the back side. That's the confusing part about paper piecing, is the fabric is going on the back of the paper and we're sewing on the front. So it does get a little confusing. All right, so I'm going to go fold this away and make a nice straight cut on my paper, or on the side, using my add a quarter ruler. Now I do have a nice straight line for HG, which is hunter green. It's this big, large piece. I'm going to make sure where I cut that one, and I cut it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is the side I'm connecting. Flip it over, put it on here as best as possible, and then we're going to flip it and sew it. Just like this. I'm going to sew it in place between 1 and 2. And if you think it's shifted, lift it up and look. So you can see already that week 4's blocks are so much easier because there's just a couple pieces per. All right, that looks to be covering everything it needs to cover. I'm going to go ahead and trim away that seam allowance, making it equal with both pieces of fabric. And then I'm going to go ahead and press it. I'm going to remove my 2 pins. They are not needed now. I'm just going to open it with my fingers. I'm using my fingers to open it and roll it. I want it as flat as we could possibly get it. Just like that. Now we need AV again, which is the avocado color. This is that weird one that I cut. So I'm actually going to go ahead and lay this on the light board. We're going to cut this away first. Let's not cut the light board though. I'm going to lay this piece on here and make sure that it covers it right here. So I know that this is the side I'm sewing. I'm going to go ahead and put it back here. That's as best as it's going to be. When I fold it back, it should cover it. Ooh, it's really close call right there. Close, close, close. Let's move it up some. I need it to cover all the way. Okay, and there it is right there. I'm going to move that out of the way. We're going to sew this on between 2 and 4 now. Very carefully. Hoping that it covers it all the way. And it does. Look at that. I'm going to go ahead and cut away that extra seam allowance that kind of got wonky at the bottom because of the way I cut that piece out. All right. It was literally cutting just a sliver off. And I'm going to go ahead and fold it back now. I'm just spreading it open. Make sure that you use a 1.5 or 1.8 stitch length, because if you spread this and you can see your stitches, that's not good. So make sure you cannot see your stitches when you are doing this. All right, now we're going to go between 1 and 3. I should have done that next, but we went through 1 and 4 first because that was an oddball piece. I'm going to go ahead and fold my paper, cut my 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take CH, and this is the way it goes right here. So I'm going to hold this end, just flip it over here, CH, and that's where it's going to go. We're going to sew it on between 1 and 3. All right, I'm going to cut away my seam allowance. Wait, let's make sure it covers it first, and it does. Now let's cut the seam allowance. I have to make sure every time because I've had so many problems already since I started this. All right, turn it, press it. The roller works the best, I think, over the other pressing tools, because I do have another pressing tool here, this one, but I think the roller works better than this for this purpose. So definitely invest in a roller. All right, so page 23 or B7 is now complete. All we have to do is trim it when we're done. Let's go ahead and grab the next sheet. Oops, everything fell. All of my pieces I'm going to stick over here on this side. I'm going to go ahead and fold first. This time I remembered to fold first on my lines. There we go. Turn it, fold these. Just like that. And then this last one right here. All right. Now that that's ready, we'll move that out of the way. We're going to take one, which is JN, which is this one on the bottom. JN. And that's about the size I need it to be, but we're going to make sure, because I do have the selvage. So I'm going to lay this up here, just like this. I'm going to lay my paper on here. And my selvage is not in the way, so that's a good thing, because that's not what I want. And I'm going to go ahead and take 2 pins and pin it in place. There's one. I'm going to put another one down here, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and fold on that line, and we're going to cut away a seam allowance to start so we can see what we need to do. Flathead pins would probably be better, but I don't have any in this little area that I sew in. All right, and we're going to grab AV, which is avocado. We're going to stick that right here and say, ooh, that's where it's going to go, just like this. I'm going to flip it over, and this is the side it's sewing on. You can see I do have quite a bit of little hangover going on here, but that's perfectly fine. It's oversized, and that's what I need. So I'm going to flip it upside down, and we're going to sew between 1 and 2 real quick. On that line. Okay. I'm going to make sure that it covers it first. And it does, with plenty of space. Yay. I'm going to go ahead and cut that seam allowance away. All it is the funky cuts right here and right there. I'm going to remove my pins in a second, but first I'm going to roll my seam open just like this. And you can see that I'm picking up little pieces that are all over right here. Let's clean that up. All right, I'm going to remove my pins now. And we're going to do HG, but before we do that, we're going to fold it back, cut away a nice seam allowance. Come over here. HG is hunter green, so that's this one. I already know that this is going to be pretty straight, so we're just going to go ahead and hook this on here like this. Flip it upside down and sew between 2 and 3. Cut away my seam allowance. I mean, you really don't have to unless it's super crooked. I'm just literally cutting slivers to match it up, but that's okay. I don't want it to be too bulky behind my quilt. All right, there's that. I'm just gonna roll it. My finger did not do what I needed it to. Okay. Next is between 3 and 4. I'm just gonna fold on my 3 and 4 line. I'm gonna cut that away. Bring it back over here. And that's AV, this one. All right, let's see how I had this. It goes this way, so I'm gonna hold the side that I want, flip it over, line it up, flip it over again, and sew it on. That one lined up perfectly. I don't need to trim away any 1/4 inch seam there. Just gonna go ahead and roll it. All right, and the last piece is gonna go down here for piece 1, between 1 and 5. Piece 5 is HG, which is the hunter green. I'm gonna go ahead and trim that away. I'm gonna line this up. I know it needs to go this way, so I'm just gonna go ahead and lay it there because that's the only obvious way for it to go. And sew between 1 and 5. I do have already a 1/4 inch seam there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and roll that back. Just like this. And you can see now it's fully covered all the way around. So my page 22 or B6 is now done. Let's move on to the next. Page 21, I'm going to go ahead and cut away all this excess. I will not know what page this is after the fact. I will only know that it is B5B. My chair is so squeaky. All right, let's fold all these lines. Just like this. And you can see how much faster this goes the more you get used to it. It's those first couple pieces that are just like, hey, come on now, you know? And then you get the hang of it. Oops, that did not fold on the line I wanted it to. Once you get the hang of it, it goes so much easier. All right. We're going to start with piece 1. It's CN, which turns out to be chestnut. Okay, so that would be this one. I know it needs to go here. So I'm going to line it where I need it to be. I'm going to use my light for this first piece. Making sure that it's covering right there. And then I'm going to throw a pin here, and then I'm going to fold it back on that line and trim away that seam allowance. Again, I'm just cutting away slivers because now with the light, my pieces are pretty much the size they need to be. The next one is AV, which is this big one. This one goes here like that, so this is the end. I already know that it's the shape I need it to be, so we're just gonna fold it up over, line it up on here, just like this. Let's slide it down just a hair. There we go. I'm gonna put it right sides up, or the paper right side up, and sew between 1 and 2. Okay. I'm going to remove that pin, fold this back, trim away that excess. I'm going to press it. We're going to go ahead now between 2 and 3. So I'm just going to pull away. I'm not ripping my stitches. I'm just ripping the paper from the stitches. So 2 and 3 is right here. I'm going to cut that excess off. And we're going to grab UP, which would be this other brown. I know that it's going to go this way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it right here. Just like this. Turn it upside down and sew it. I'm going to go ahead and fold. Oh, I don't really need to trim that off. It's actually good. I'm just going to fold it. Finger press it. Grab the piece number 4. Well, actually, we're going to fold this real quick. On its line between 3 and 4. Trim off that excess. Grab piece 4, which is DA, and I know it goes like this. I'm going to hold that side, and that side will get hooked to this. Go ahead, flip it upside down, and sew between 3 and 4. I'm going to make sure I fold it back and look. It does match. I'm going to get rid of that excess seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and press it back. Okay, now I need to fold it between 4 and 5. I'm just going to rip the paper from it. Ooh, it really caught that paper right there. Okay. We're going to cut the seam allowance. And we're going to put this on here. And it's going to go like this. So I'm just going to lay this on here. And we're going to sew on the line between 4 and 5. And that should be the correct size. Finger pressing it. Just give it a quick roll. That one I didn't need to cut anything away because it was pretty good. And there we have piece, which was page 21. It's B5B is done. Now we're going to go on to page 20, which had 2 pieces that I got ready. We're going to go ahead and fold all of our lines. I know J right here. Let's see, JN is jungle, and this is the way it's going to go. And it looks to be covering it exactly the way it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw some pins in here without looking in the light, because I don't need the light at this point. I can see the piece itself covering everything that it needs to cover. So it's where it needs to be sitting. I'm going to adjust it though, because that is totally not flat. There we go. Now it's flat. And we're going to cut between 1 and 2. Trim that excess away. And we're going to grab piece 2, which is HG. HG was hunter green. That's this funky piece right here that I said, I'm going to make it work. So I'm going to lay this on here, and it's going to have some hangover because I'm making it work. We're going to make sure when I fold it that it covers where it's supposed to. Down just a little. I'm going to sew this on between 1 and 2. Before I do anything, I am going to make sure that it covered it, and it did. I'm just going to finger press that one. Actually, I'm going to cut away that excess funkiness. All right, so 1 and 2 is done. Now I need between 2 and 3, which is ZZ. ZZ is basil. So we're going to make sure, how did I cut this one? Oh, right there. So that's how I had it, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that on there, flip it over, and sew. Between 2 and 3. I'm going to flip it back. Ooh, I cut that one a little short. Hold on. 2 and 3. We're going to rip that and back it a little bit up. That's because I didn't cut away the excess between 2 and 3. That's what it is. I didn't cut my seam allowance. That's what messed me up. You got to remember to cut that away, I guess, because that's what messed me up just now. I'm just ripping it. So there's my first rip of video 4. I think I had one in video 3 as well. All right, before I do anything, let's go back over here and cut away this seam allowance. That way I know where it needs to sit. That would be the smart idea. All right, now let's try that again. Let's make sure that it's covering it. Okay, hold on. Let's see which way I had this piece again. Right here. So it goes right here. Just like that. Okay. Now let's stitch it. Fold it back. Ah, that's what we wanted. I'm going to pull those threads out from where I ripped. I could have done that first, but that's okay. I'm doing it now. So I'm just getting rid of the threads that I ripped away. We're going to roll this back. And we're going to go ahead and pre-cut away the seam allowance for the next piece. Oh, did I need to cut that? No, I didn't. That was pretty good. All right, so between the next 2, that's trimmed off. So between 3 and 4, we have this piece, and I automatically know it goes right here. So we're just going to right sides together that thing and sew it on. Roll it back. It has a pretty good seam allowance. and it's covering the piece totally, so that's good. All right, so now remove the pins. Page 20, the first piece or second piece that was on here, which is B5C, is now done. I'm going to set that aside and grab the second one that was on that page 20. This one's all yellows. I'm going to fold all my lines. Remember, some of these pieces are really tiny, so just be very careful. There we go. All right. So I'm going to start with 1, which is UN. UN was sunflower, which is this one. So I'm going to go ahead and use my light box to center it on here where it needs to be. All right. Here, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and grab a pin and another pin. And then I'm going to fold this back between 1 and 2 and cut away that seam allowance. And number 2 is LQ, which is LQ. I'm looking. LQ is lemon. Pretty sure that is LQ right here. I know that that goes like that because that's the way I cut it. We're going to make sure that it covers it all the way. Come down a little bit. And there it goes. It covers it all the way right there. Flip it upside down and sew between 1 and 2. Has a pretty good seam allowance already, so I'm just going to go ahead and call it and leave it right there. I'm going to pull my pins out because they are not needed anymore. All right, let's roll that so that it's super flat. I am going to press all these pieces when I am done. All right, between 1 and 3 now. Let's fold that back. It's already pretty close to a seam allowance, but we're just going to make it exact. And that would be BC, which is buttercup. We're going to see which way this one has been cut. I'm going to assume that it is cut right here. Making sure. It's not that direction. It's this direction. Aha! Is it this direction? Let's use the light board and see. Sometimes I don't remember which way I cut them because I have a really short memory. All right, that does not go that way. Did I cut it this way? No. Did I cut it this way? No. This way. Aha! This is the way. So this side right here is going to go right along that. Right there. Let's make sure by folding it over. Yep. Okay. That's the way it sews on there. I have a nice seam allowance already there. I'm going to fold it back. Yay, it's covering where I need it to cover. I'm going to go ahead and roll it. Between 3 and 4 now, I'm going to create a seam allowance. And 4 is BR, so BR is butter. Remember, some of these are funky pieces because I was trying to make do with what I have of the fabric. Yeah, that's the way it's gonna go right here. Just like this. Kind of hangs over some, but that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and sew this on here. I did not cut these exact, but we're gonna make sure that it's covering, and it is. I'm gonna go ahead and cut away that funky excess because I did funky cut the piece in the first place. We're gonna roll it back. And then the last piece on the bottom is MZ, so let's cut away our seam allowance to add MZ. And obviously, MZ is going to go this way, just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that over and sew it on. And that one's seam allowance, I already lined it up, so it's good to go. Roll it, and there we have piece B5A, or what was page 20. All right, last page, 19. This one has a bunch of small pieces. We're going to go ahead and cut away all this extra paper. It is not needed. Okay. All right, let's find piece 1 on here. 1 is LQ. That would be this guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay that on here. I'm going to use the light board, making sure that the whole piece is covered. And I'm going to throw just a single pin in here because this is making sure it's covered all the way. Just putting 1 pin. And I didn't fold first, so let's fold between 1 and 2 real quick. Between 3 and 4. 5 and 4. 3 and 4. That's where I'm at now. And then 4 and 5. There we go. Totally folded now. So between 1 and 2, I'm going to go ahead and fold and create a nice seam allowance. My piece is kind of shifting a little, even with that pin there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that pin again. Lay it back on here. I'm going to make sure that it stays right there. Between 1 and 2, let's fold that line again. We're going to cut that away. My piece keeps shifting every time I move. There we go. So the piece we're hooking is UN. UN is sunflower. So that would be this guy right here, right? Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and put him on the back side, just like this. We're going to sew between 1 and 2 real quick. Oops. It shifted as I turned it over. Be very, very careful with it. All right, between 1 and 2. And you can see a lot of these lines really cross themselves into that seam. All right, let's make sure it covers it, and it does. Yep, yep. All right, let's cut away that excess. We're going to fold this back. Roll it. And then we're going to cut between 2 and 3 now. I'm just going to go ahead and rip the paper off. I'm going to make that seam allowance right there. And we're going to add BC. BC is Buttercup, so that's this one. All right, so we're going to make sure which way I had it. Did I have it right there? I did. So we're going to flip that over onto this side. I'm going to make sure it covers, and it does. We're going to sew that on there. All right, we're going to make sure it's covering it fully. We're going to cut away that excess. Roll it back. See, like I said, some of these pieces are going to be small. We should be able to work them though. All right, between 3 and 4 now. Let's rip that paper right here very carefully. We're going to cut away that seam allowance. We're going to grab BR, which is butter. Let's make sure which way it goes. This way. So this side right here, closest to me, I'm going to grab and place on the back. And we're going to sew it on. Very small piece here. Did it cover it? It did. Okay. So I'm going to cut away that seam allowance. It's not much, just a sliver. Roll it back. I'm just going to use my finger. Then between 4 and 5, again, ripping my paper very carefully. I'm going to trim that away. Nice seam allowance. And we're going to add this last piece, which is MZ, maize. I'm going to make sure which way it goes. And it hangs over quite a bit right here. Perfect. So I'm just going to sew it on there. So between 4 and 5. I'm going to make sure that it's covering it. Oh man, we need to back it up a little bit. So there's seam rip number 2 of video 4. Just need to back it up a little bit. I was cutting it real close there. And this is harder to seam rip because this is in a ton of seams right here. Normally I slide my seam ripper through like this and then slide it through, but right there in that corner I couldn't have. Right there. I'm just gonna swipe all that thread out of the way. It's very thick right here in this little section. All right, let's make sure again, goes this way. I'm just gonna flip it and sew further up. Right there. Okay, let's try that again. Make sure. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Let's rip that again. I'm just leaving this in the video too, guys. This happens. Okay, we're going to bring this light box over and make sure because I might have to just trim it while it's sitting here in front of me. So that way it lines up better. All right, so let's go back to this front side real quick. Bring over the light. bring over the piece, and it's going to go right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim now a little bit of it off. There we go. That might help me straighten it better. So let's try that again. Back here. I'm going to fold it back and see what happens. Okay, that's a lot better. Move the light. Making sure that I'm sewing that. One more time, that's it. Let's fold it back. Ooh, yay, this time I got it. So the light box really does help. I do need to pull all this thread that's right here away. It's kind of sewn in a little right there. I'll be very careful to snip it. I'm going to roll it now with my trusty seam roller. I'm finally going to take this pin out. And I'm also going to put a little tiny tack right here at the bottom to hold that piece on there. All right, so this was page 19, and this is B4B. That is done. So now all we need to do is press all of our blocks now, and then we're going to file or trim them and then file them away. So let's go over and press them, and I'll be right back in just a few minutes. All right, a few minutes have passed. Here is our pieces. We're going to go ahead now and trim them to the edge of the outside of the gray, not the inside at the black line. We want the outside of the gray. And just to be safe, I am cutting it within millimeters. So you can see I still have some of the white. You can still see it. I'm making sure that I leave just a smidge, just in case. So it's always best to cut it bigger than it is to cut it smaller. But this is my seam allowance for when I attach all these pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and trim all of my blocks now to size. Okay, so our blocks are now trimmed. Let's grab our book and file them now that we're filing. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to my filing pages. We're on B5A. So let's see, is B5A here? B2, nope. So let's go, the next one, B5A is in this stack. So I'm just going to put that there. B5B is right there. And B5C is right here. So all three of these are going to go in this right here. We're going to go right here and see what this is. B4B and B8. Oh yeah, B8A is in there. B7. I don't see B7. B7. I guess because they're whole sheets, they're not on there. B6 and B7 are going to go with B's. So every single one of these pages are now going to go in this B file right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide them in here neatly. Just like that. And they are ready for when we go to piece our blocks together. So look at that. My little filing system is working. So there we have it. Just like that. It's all in my folder. I'm done. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This was week 4 of the Skulliver Sew Along. And I also love, love, love that in week 3, I found my little see-through sheaths to put my pattern pieces in, because that is now amazing. And everything is together and I don't have to worry about losing anything. So that's great. I love that. So if you guys can find those sheaths, school supplies are probably on sale everywhere, because, you know, it's the middle of the year and you don't need school supplies anymore. So I'm pretty sure you can find them for cheap. I already had some because that's what I was putting patterns in another book, but those were all the empty ones in the back of the book. So I just stole them for this temporarily. And then they'll go back for whatever project I need them for again. So that works. Again, the lightsaver was also the lightsaver. The light box is also a lifesaver when it comes to paper piecing. So yeah, say that 10 times fast. Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed. Don't forget, while you're doing this, breathe, because it's not that bad. Okay? Even though I was seam ripping, it's not that bad. I just took a breath. And also, I hope that it didn't bother you that I took a second to go outside and enjoy the rain, because again, it's rare to rain here. So anyways, thank you guys for watching week 4, and I'll see you again in week 5's video. Bye!